of Opposition, let's welcome the Deputy Prime Minister.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. He's the worst days I've ever had in my life.
Mr. Chair, I think from Gian's side, it was already very clear that the kind of people that we're talking about are the kind of people who already have significant number of abuses towards his own people. It's the kind of person who's already killed, who's already abused, and who does not care about what happens to his people. Because this person is hungry and he wants to stay in power. So if it's a question of whether or not the person has any possibility of being good, then most likely that person has already tarnished that the moment that he's already extinguished all means possible to probably ensure that his reputation is still good, whatever their definition of good is. In my extension, I'm going to talk about first how it's going to send a message how it's going to send a message to the near future dictators, and the second is how this is a response to the failing judiciary system of status quo, why this is the only means to address this kind of problem. But before that, some rebuttals. Leader of opposition first said that, well, these people have rights, and we agree. But we think that if it takes one life to save 1,000, then we've already conceded to that cause. Remember, these are not normal people or your normal everyday criminals. These are people who are hard to take out. These are people who are not willing to listen. These are people who have power enough to even be a threat to certain states and even a threat to the lives of its own citizens. She said that, well, they could always try to explain. I'm sure, Mr. Chair, that the explaining will no longer hold any guard after they've already killed thousands or abused millions of people, even within their country. There's no point of explaining anything because after all, you can't just say, after killing 1,000 people, that I'm sorry, please forgive me. That doesn't work, Mr. Chair. She said that, well, what about the politician? What about the leader's policy? Because according to her, there are still some people who are loyal. We think, Mr. Chair, that the moment that you kill the dictator, his posse, or the people who support him will no longer have power as well. Remember, the only reason why these people have power is because their leader is at power. The moment that their leader is dead is the moment that the group is going to be demolished. Because without a leader, these people have nobody to follow. And when that happens, when the leader dies, even within the system or even within the group, we're going to assume there's probably going to be a power play on who gets to be the new leader. We think that if that power play happens, it's still not going, at the end of the day, it's not going to ensure that this group or whatever that group or whatever the support group is, Mr. Chair, is going to lead any possible threat to the new country. Because at the end of the day, eventually, they are going to lose their power without the leader, Mr. Chair. She also said that, well, people have to realize the value of the democracy. And this is why she wanted to support revolutions and all of that. Despite the fact that Gian already said that revolutions are ineffective, these leaders have power to censor media, to censor everything, and even to threaten anybody who shows any sign of revolt towards their own leader. We still think, Mr. Chair, that this is even the reason why these people are too afraid to move. This is the reason why these dictators have stayed in power so long, because their power is so absolute that even their own citizens cannot revolt against this leader. If it's a question of whether or not of how these people should realize democracy, we think that there are other ways for these individuals to realize and value democracy, like probably only when they actually experience it after the dictator is dead, Mr. Chair. So, despite the fact that Gian was already very clear when he said that alternatives do not work, these people hold significant power, even to a point that even regular judiciary means like impeachment and all those other things are ineffective. And I'm going to explain later in my extension why. But first, extension. How is going to send a message that will deter future dictators? When you look at status quo, the trend is that if you're a dictator, the way the international community bribes you to opt out of power is either through negotiations or through an asylum. And we think, Mr. Chair, that it's completely unjustified for you to simply let that person go after he's committed all of those heinous crimes. Even we think, Mr. Chair, that what's happening in status quo is that it's not very strong with its ideas of ensuring that these dictators do not sprout out again, Mr. Chair, because at the end of the day, what status quo is saying is that after you've killed thousands, stole millions, and abused a million more people, at the end of the day, you could always be set free and be forgiven for all of your crimes, or just have some jail time at the end of the day. We think, Mr. Chair, that we want to send a hardline message to future abusers or current dictators that right now in status quo, right now in status quo, the moment that you become a dictator, the moment that you abuse anybody, it's going to be hard. We're going to ensure that we're going to kill you, and we're not going to give you any way of escaping all of the injustices that you've committed. Second extension is how this is a response to the failing judiciary system. When you analyze the power of dictators and abusive heads of state, even when you look at the judiciary or the local level, it's not effective, because when you look at the judiciary or the local systems, most likely the leader has the power to dismantle this system. Or even if he doesn't have the power, Mr. Chair, we still think that the leader has enough power to control the military and ensure that he still reigns in power. Or even when you look at it in an international perspective, when you look at the ICC, even the ICC is ineffective in ensuring that trials are done and trials are made, Mr. Chair. Because when you look at the track record of ICC, the only time that it was ever effective was during Milosevic, and that was after his death, Mr. Chair, after he's already killed thousands and abused millions, Mr. Chair. We think that because of the fact that the system is ineffective, this prompts us to make sure, Mr. Chair, that we go out of the rule, that we take out some rules, we break some rules, and we ensure that we kill the person before he commits any more resistance.
Okay, we can dedicate 1 minute for a very interesting extension, or whatever that is called. Let's start from the Timekeeper
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am of the opposition side. Before I start with the refutations, I would like to restate our legislation. Our legislation proposes that in order to bring deterrence of preventing these political governments or officials, there will be this certain government. If the other, for example, the other politicians or other government officials and even the people give sufficient evidences of the ineffectiveness of this political individual, he will then be given notice, and if this notice is not met, he will be impeached immediately. Sit down. And this notice would be in a somewhat a form of instruction given by the government body and decided by them. And as I've said, if this is not met, they will be impeached. And I will now go to my refutations. First, they mentioned that this their motion will somewhat send a message to future government officials who will abuse their power, that if they do this, they will be assassinated. But ladies and gentlemen, how sure are you that if you kill this government official, people who is under his influence won't go to war? Well, they also said that they will be afraid to fight for this certain leader that they had assassinated. But no, because this does not always happen. There are also things that when the leaders there are also times that when you kill this certain government official, his influence is so great that the people will not take into consideration what they had done to assassinate that certain government official. And then there is no assurance that they will really not go to war because they had assassinated this certain leader. They also said that alternatives are ineffective, that revolution is ineffective. But what about the EDSA revolution that happened in the Philippines? It worked. The people or the citizens were able to bring Marcos down or let him step down of power. And then they had also said that this certain government official has this great power, and he might even control the military, and let's just say that's the end of everything. But no, because not all citizens are in the military, so they don't have that complete power yet to really control everything and make things go their own way. And so I will now go to my points. My first point is affecting the citizens of that certain country. First of all, if you implement this motion, what assurance do you have that these group of people that you've assigned to assassinate this certain government official to not actually kill this government official because of their personal biases? When you kill, and also pertaining to the citizens, the fear of being imprisoned the citizens' fear of being imprisoned because they have assassinated this government official is gone, because the citizens would be thinking that, well, they have implemented this law, so if they can assassinate this government official, then why can't we? And so if they feel like they're abused when let's just say if they're not, then when they just feel like, because they have these personal biases, that they want to kill this government official. And my second point would be about the crimes of the politician. There are laws which offer punishments to a certain crime the politician had made. So why not use these punishments that the law has offered to meet that certain crimes instead of killing them immediately? And then, if you are also going to compare our side and their side, our side and their side, to put the situation in the simplest form, you have the government official or the leader, and then you have the people, and and they have this argument or conflict that they couldn't solve, their solution to this problem, which is assassinating the government official, is already chaotic in nature. So if they will say that the revolution is chaotic and it's because there will be war and it's not peaceful or something, when their motion itself is chaotic already in nature, because you are involving violent action like killing the government official. While in our side, we are involving deterrence like giving impeachment and all these kinds of things. But at the same time, we also mean the rights of the people, not only of the government official, but also of the citizens. And that is all.